I'm using voice transcription on my phone for this because typing everything out feels exhausting, and honestly, I've never been great with words. This happened a long time ago. I think 7 or 8 years, maybe 6. My life has been chaotic since then, so memories blur together more than I'd like. But this night is one I've never really been able to forget. It was New Year's Eve, back when I was still dating my ex, Duda. We were driving home from a party at one of her friends' places. We hadn't originally been on the guest list, so there wasn't anywhere for us to stay the night. That meant we had no real choice but to drive back, even though it was already well past midnight and we were both exhausted. The drive was about 30 minutes, give or take. The roads were almost completely empty, which I remember being weirdly comforting. It had snowed earlier that day, so the streets were icy and slick, and the last thing I needed was heavy traffic on top of everything else. Duda was half asleep in the passenger seat, bundled in her coat. I had the heat turned up high and some random rock playlist playing just to keep myself awake and focused. We were probably 10 minutes away from her place when everything happened. One moment, the road ahead was completely empty. The next, there was just a woman standing in the middle of the street. She wasn't crossing, she wasn't walking, she was just standing there, facing directly toward my car like she had been waiting for us. My brain didn't even have time to process it. I slammed on the brakes before I fully understood what I was seeing. That's when I noticed the knife. She was holding it down by her side, a huge kitchen knife, the kind you'd use to carve a turkey. My headlights lit her up completely and I could see her face clearly. It was twisted in this horrifying way, like she was crying and screaming at the same time. It didn't look normal, it looked sick, almost inhuman. I reacted purely on instinct. I yanked the wheel to the right to avoid hitting her. But the second I did, she lunged at the car. I heard the impact before I even understood what had happened. She had swung the knife at the vehicle as we passed. Even though I'd avoided her, the sudden swerve combined with the icy road was too much. I felt the tires lose grip and suddenly we were spinning. Duda woke up instantly and started screaming. I gripped the steering wheel like that would somehow fix things. But the car was completely out of my control. We spun a full 180 degrees before finally coming to a stop, now facing the direction we had just come from. And that meant we were now facing her again. She was about 30 feet away, still holding the knife, illuminated by my headlights like something straight out of a horror movie. She was limping toward us, moving quickly despite being clearly injured. She was also screaming, but I couldn't make out any actual words. It was just this guttural, animal-like noise that made my skin crawl. To this day, that's still the most terrifying thing I've ever seen with my own eyes. Duda was yelling at me to do something, but I was frozen. I couldn't stop staring at this woman lurching closer. Her clothes were dirty and torn, her hair was matted and wild. I couldn't tell if she was on drugs, having some kind of mental breakdown, or something else entirely. There was just nothing behind her eyes. It looked like she was already dead and just didn't know it yet. When she got to about 15 feet away, my survival instincts finally kicked in. I threw the car into drive and slammed on the gas. The tires spun uselessly on the ice for a terrifying second before finally catching. The car lurched forward. I thought we were clear. I thought that was it. I was wrong. I don't know how she moved that fast. One second she was in front of the car and the next she was on it. She threw herself onto the hood and the entire vehicle shuddered from the impact. Duda was screaming. I was swearing, and the woman was clinging to the hood with one hand while stabbing the windshield over and over with the knife. It felt like she was trying to break in and kill me. I couldn't see properly, I couldn't think straight. Pure panic took over. I started jerking the wheel back and forth as hard as I could. The car swerved violently on the icy road. The woman slid across the hood but somehow kept her grip. Her face was inches from the glass. Her eyes locked directly onto mine the whole time. She kept screaming that same horrible, wordless scream. On the third or fourth swerve, she finally lost her grip. I watched in the side of my vision as she rolled off the hood and slammed onto the pavement before sliding onto the shoulder of the road. The car fishtailed again, but this time I managed to keep it under control. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her lying there. She wasn't moving. For a moment, I actually considered stopping. I know that sounds insane after everything that had just happened, but a part of me thought maybe I'd just killed her. Maybe she had been some mentally ill woman who needed help, and I'd just left her to die on the side of the road. Before I could slow down, Duda grabbed my arm and told me not to stop. She was shaking, repeating over and over that we needed to leave, that this wasn't our problem, that we couldn't get involved. I suggested at least calling the police, but she immediately shut that down too. She said the cops would blame us since we'd been drinking and that they'd never believe our story. She insisted we'd get arrested or worse. Looking back, that logic doesn't really make sense, but in that moment she sounded urgent and convincing. She always had that way about her, persuasive, almost manipulative without seeming like it. So I didn't stop. I drove straight home and never told anyone. The damage to my car wasn't even that bad. Just a cracked windshield, deep knife scratches along the driver's side window, and a few marks on the hood. Strangely, there wasn't any blood on the car at all. I got everything fixed about a week later, but the guilt stuck with me for months. I kept checking local news reports, waiting to see something about a body found on the road or a missing woman. But nothing ever came up. No report, no investigation, nothing. I still don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. Part of me wonders if she got up after we left and just disappeared into the woods. Another part of me doesn't want to know what really happened. The thing that disturbed me the most afterward wasn't just the incident itself. It was Duda's reaction. Within a couple of days, she acted like nothing had happened. She went back to normal life, making plans, going out with friends, laughing like it was just another week. When I tried to bring it up, she got annoyed and told me I was being dramatic, that we'd done what we had to do. I remember staring at her, wondering how she could be so cold about something like that. A woman had tried to kill us. We might have killed her, and she was ready to forget it in 48 hours. We broke up a few months later for reasons that were mostly unrelated. But I'd be lying if I said that night didn't change how I saw her. Maybe I'm the crazy one. But an experience like that isn't something you just forget. That night I might have ended someone's life, or that deranged woman might have ended mine. Either way, it's not the kind of thing that ever really leaves you. I went to Cal Berkeley for undergrad, and that's where I met one of my closest friends, a guy named Garrett. His real name is Guo, but when we first met freshman year, he introduced himself using his American name, and it just stuck. He's originally from Hong Kong and came to the States to study computer science. To this day, he's still one of the smartest people I've ever known. After graduation, we ended up on opposite sides of the world. I moved to New York for work, and he went back to Hong Kong to start his career there. Even with the distance, we stayed close. We try to see each other at least once or twice a year, either him flying out to visit me or me making a trip to Asia. I know not everyone gets to travel like that, so I've always appreciated it. This whole incident happened last New Year's Eve, and I still think about it constantly. I've told a few people over time, but no one really knows what to make of it. Honestly, neither do I. For context, Hong Kong is about 13 hours ahead of New York. So when it's midnight in Hong Kong on December 31st, it's only around 11 a.m. On December 31st in New York, Garrett usually celebrates both the regular New Year and the Chinese New Year, so he was out partying that night, just many hours before me. On my end, I spent New Year's Eve with my two closest friends in the city, Ryland and Ari. We started the night at Ryland's apartment for a few drinks, then later headed to a rooftop party in Williamsburg that one of Ari's co-workers had invited us to. It was actually a pretty nice party, upscale for Brooklyn, good music, crowded but not overwhelming. Around 11:30 p.m., I noticed a girl standing near the bar by herself. On impulse, I walked over and introduced myself. From the moment we started talking, the conversation just flowed effortlessly. She had this magnetic energy, funny, confident, incredibly easy to talk to. Within minutes, she grabbed my hand and pulled me onto the dance floor like we'd known each other for years. Her name was Maitra. At least that's how she pronounced it. Maitri. I remember asking her to repeat it because I'd never heard a name like that before. She laughed and said most people just called her Maitri since that was basically how it sounded. Then she pulled out a pen and wrote it on my hand so I wouldn't forget. We danced, talked, laughed. By midnight, we kissed when the countdown ended. About half an hour later, she leaned close and asked if I wanted to get out of there. I said yes without even thinking. We called an Uber and went back to my place in the East Village. I'll skip the obvious details, but it was honestly a great night. Afterward, we stayed up talking for a long time. I remember random facts about her because they stuck in my mind for some reason. She said she was originally from San Diego. She was a painter who used to do graffiti and murals before transitioning to more traditional art. Her middle name was Mia, which also happened to be the name of one of her cats. The other cat was named Cosmo. Her birthday was April 28th. She even mentioned that her childhood best friend was from some tiny town in Germany called Hillesheim. Her dad was a patent lawyer. These details might sound random, but they become important later. At some point, she mentioned her clothes smelled like the bar. I told her she could just toss them in the wash, so she did. While they were drying, she borrowed one of my t-shirts to sleep in. Eventually, we both passed out. When I woke up the next morning, she was gone. At first, I didn't think much of it. People leave early after hookups all the time. I figured she slipped out quietly to avoid any awkward morning conversation, which was totally fine with me. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My apartment door was still locked. It's a standard lock that can only be locked from the outside with a key. It doesn't auto-lock. That meant either she somehow locked it from the outside without a key, which made no sense, or she had never left at all. I checked the entire apartment. It's not big. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen, and a living room. There's no second exit, and the windows only open a few inches. I even checked my closet like an idiot, half expecting her to be hiding in there as some kind of joke, but she wasn't anywhere. The more I thought about it, the more impossible the situation became. Her clothes were gone from the dryer. The t-shirt I lent her was also missing. All physical evidence said she had been there, slept there, and then left. But there was simply no way she could have exited the apartment without unlocking the door. I started questioning my own sanity. I genuinely wondered if I had somehow imagined the entire night because of alcohol. But that didn't explain the missing clothes or the missing shirt. To make things worse, I realized I never got her number or any form of contact information. I spent most of that day pacing around, replaying every detail I could remember about her so I wouldn't forget. San Diego, painter, graffiti background, cats named Mia and Cosmo, birthday April 28th. Dad was a patent lawyer, friend from Hillesheim. I repeated these facts in my head over and over. Later that afternoon, I suddenly felt this strange urge to call Garrett. There wasn't a clear reason. It was just this persistent feeling that I should talk to him. So I did. We chatted casually at first, catching up about work and how we each spent New Year's Eve. But he sounded a bit off. Eventually, I asked him what was wrong. He sighed and told me he had met a girl the night before at a party. They hit it off, went back to his place, and she left the next morning without saying goodbye or leaving any contact information. He sounded disappointed about it. I laughed and said the exact same thing had just happened to me. Then he told me her name. Maitra, he said, like my tree. I felt this chill run through my entire body. I asked him to describe her. He started listing details. She was from San Diego. She was a painter who used to do graffiti. Her birthday was April 28th. I cut him off and asked if she had a cat named Mia. There was a pause on the line before he slowly said yes. We both went completely silent for a few seconds. After that, we spent about 15 minutes listing every single detail we could remember about her, and everything matched perfectly. Every tiny random fact lined up. It was honestly terrifying. Then it got worse. Garrett actually had pictures with her from that night. He sent them to me. It was the exact same girl, no doubt in my mind. Same face, same hair, same everything. We tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was lying to both of us using the same backstory, but then the timeline made that impossible. Garrett met her around 11 p.m. on December 31st in Hong Kong. I met her around 11:30 p.m. on December 31st in New York. That's roughly a 12-hour difference in real time, but a flight from Hong Kong to New York takes at least 15 hours. Usually more like 16 or 17. Even if she had boarded a plane the instant she left his apartment, she couldn't physically have made it to that rooftop party in time. The math simply didn't work. And even ignoring travel time, how would she have known to go to that exact party in Williamsburg? How would she have ended up talking specifically to me? Why use the same name, the same life story, the same everything? Neither of us has ever been able to explain it. We've talked about that night dozens of times since then, and we always end up in the same place. Complete confusion. Neither of us has ever seen her again. We tried looking her up online, but searching for Mitra, an artist from San Diego with no last name and only vague details, didn't lead anywhere. What messes with me the most is how real it all felt. I talked to her for hours. She slept in my bed, she borrowed my shirt, she laughed, joked, told stories. There was nothing ghostly or unreal about her in the moment. And yet she vanished from a locked apartment with no possible exit. And somehow, impossibly, she spent the same New Year's Eve night with my best friend on the other side of the world. New Year's Eve is coming up again soon, which is probably why all of this has been on my mind. Usually, strange experiences fade over time, becoming easier to dismiss. But this one feels like the opposite. The more time passes, the more unsettling it becomes. Because the only explanation that even remotely fits is one I don't really want to believe. That on New Year's Eve, I might have spent the night with someone who didn't fully belong to this world. This happened when I was 16 during a winter break when my parents left town for a few days to visit relatives. I stayed home alone because I had school assignments to finish and didn't feel like traveling. I'd been alone in the house before, so it didn't really bother me. If anything, I kind of enjoyed the freedom. Ordering takeout, staying up late, watching movies without anyone complaining about the volume. The first 2 nights were completely normal. On the 3rd night, though, something changed. It was around 1:30 a.m. I was in my room upstairs, headphones on, working on my laptop. Outside, the neighborhood was dead quiet. No cars, no wind, nothing. That kind of deep silence that almost feels unnatural. At some point, I heard a faint noise through the headphones. I paused the video, thinking it was just part of whatever I was watching. Then I heard it again. A soft knock. 3 slow taps. At first, I thought I imagined it. My room was on the 2nd floor and the front door was downstairs. The idea that someone was knocking in the middle of the night didn't even make sense. I sat still for a few seconds, listening. Nothing. I told myself it was probably the house settling or maybe a branch hitting the window. Old houses make weird noises all the time, especially in winter. Then the knocking came again. 3 taps. Slightly louder this time. I pulled off my headphones and held my breath. My heart started pounding in a way that felt completely out of proportion to the situation. I remember trying to act rational, telling myself it was probably a neighbor at the wrong house or maybe someone delivering something late by mistake. I checked the time on my phone. 1:37 a.m. Who knocks on a door at almost 2 in the morning? I didn't move at first. I just sat there waiting for it to stop. but after about 30 seconds, the knocking happened again. 3 slow taps, perfectly spaced apart, like whoever was doing it wasn't in any rush. Finally, I got up and walked to the top of the stairs. The house was dark except for the dim light coming from my room behind me. I could see the front door at the bottom of the stairs, but from that angle, I couldn't see through the peephole or the side windows. I stood there for a moment, frozen. Then, before I could even decide what to do, a voice spoke from the other side of the door. It was a man's voice, calm, almost gentle. He said my name. Youssef, I know you're home. Every muscle in my body locked up instantly. There was no way he should have known my name. My parents weren't there. None of my friends were supposed to come over, and even if someone did know me, why would they show up unannounced at nearly 2 a.m. and talk like that? I didn't respond. I couldn't. He knocked again, 3 taps. Youssef, open the door. I just need to talk to you. My mind started racing through possibilities. Maybe it was a family friend, maybe something had happened to my parents and someone came to inform me. But if that were the case, why not call first? Why sound so calm? I slowly backed up a step, careful not to make noise on the wooden floor. The silence stretched out for a few seconds. Then he spoke again. I know you're on the stairs. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd been punched. There was absolutely no way he could see me from outside. The front door didn't have any windows at eye level and the hallway lights were off. From where he stood, I should have been completely invisible. I stopped breathing. He chuckled softly, like he found the whole thing amusing. You shouldn't ignore people, Youssef, and it's not polite. I felt a cold wave of panic wash over me. Every instinct screamed that something was very wrong. I wanted to run back to my room, lock the door, and call someone, but my legs felt glued to the floor. Then I heard the doorknob move. It rattled once, then again harder. My brain finally snapped out of its frozen state. I turned and sprinted back to my room, slamming the door behind me and locking it. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone while dialing my older cousin who lived a few streets away. While it rang, I could still hear faint noises downstairs. Slow footsteps on the wooden floor. The kind of sound old houses make when someone is moving around, even if they try to be quiet. But that was impossible. The door had been locked. There was no sound of it opening. No breaking glass, no crash, just footsteps like someone had always been inside the house. My cousin finally answered, groggy and confused. I whispered as quietly as I could, telling him someone was in the house. He immediately said he was coming and told me to stay on the line. For the next few minutes, we both stayed silent, listening. The footsteps stopped at some point and the house went completely quiet again. Too quiet. That silence felt worse than the noise. After about 10 minutes, I heard a car pull up outside. My cousin started honking the horn loudly, probably hoping to scare whoever was inside. I didn't dare leave my room until he started yelling my name from downstairs. When I finally opened the door and came out, the house was empty. The front door was still locked from the inside. Every window was closed, no signs of forced entry, nothing out of place. It looked exactly like it had before, as if the whole thing had never happened. We searched every room, every closet, even the basement. There was no one there. To this day, I don't know how that man knew my name. I don't know how he sounded so sure about where I was standing, and I definitely don't know how I heard footsteps inside a locked house with no sign that anyone had ever entered. My parents didn't really believe the full story when they got back. They said I was probably stressed and half asleep, that my imagination filled in the gaps. Maybe they were right. Maybe fear made everything seem more real than it actually was. But there's one detail I never told them and I've never been able to explain. The next morning when I went downstairs, I found 3 faint scratches on the inside of the front door. Long, thin marks right at the height of the doorknob. Like someone had dragged something sharp across the wood from the inside. I never heard knocking at the door again after that night. But sometimes when the house is quiet and it's late enough, I still feel this strange certainty that if I ever do hear 3 slow knocks again, they won't be coming from outside.